We're going to go over everything that underground facilities was going to be this time. Last time we kind of just covered it in conjunction with the roadmap roundup. This time we're going to dive into what these things are supposed to be. Because this is actually a really long process that these were introduced over. Right now, we're looking at the possibility of these coming in 4.3 located on every moon in the Stanton system, bringing in cooperative zones with different types of play. Now, in order to see why the heck we're getting these, we're going to go all the way back to CitizenCon 2018, Keynote Edition. Here is the first introduction of their underground bunkers. Y'all remember this?
Back to camera 6, please.
This was hype. Okay, we didn't even have planetary gameplay at this point, so seeing this was like, holy crap, dude. Star Citizen, what you doing, bro?
Some pretty hardcore AA here. Why don't player 1 and player 3 have a little fun?
Yeah, that turret fire is... Dude, what? Did he even shoot that turret?
Why don't player 1 and player 3
Look at, he's missing the whole time.
have a little fun?
And then it explodes.
Yeah.
He looks like me shooting these turrets in the game. It's freaking hard to aim.
Okay.
This is the best part, though. That was definitely a reason to cheer. That was pretty freaking cool.
And this is I guess, military, the version of the temporal cyclone, which is also going live with 3.3.
Yep.
So we have this.
All right, skip forward a little bit.
That is underground facility. So
Yes.
Lawville.
Oh, perfect timing.
So another type of missions that we have in
Yes.
3.3 on Lawville or Hurston, actually more Hurston, is underground facility. So
Yes.
this is the very first example of underground systems. So we're going to have underground facilities, caves, other kind of things. And this particular one, this happens to be a...
I love when you're like listing something out and you're like, okay, I got this list. I do this all the time. Yeah, we're gonna do all this stuff that goes underground. We got underground facilities. All right, yeah, you know, there's caves here. Okay, we got shit. What else is underground? What else is underground? And then you go to space.
kind of, I don't know, waste storage.
I think it was used for refining.
Refining,
and,
right?
Well, we'll go check it out.
So let's go
You
down.
guys are too good a shot. You left nothing.
It's a pirate base. So this was like, we know this. This is our underground facilities we know and love. But then if you jump forward to CitizenCon 2022, you'll hear Ian Leyland here explain kind of what the heck is going on with underground facilities and why they're introducing something else new.
Let's talk about the original underground facilities. Now, the problem was we made these originally for the CitizenCon presentation demo, and the time we
That was literally the demo we just watched like 10 seconds ago.
had wasn't enough to kind of take the location where we wanted it to be. Now, it kind of fits the current purpose. It's fairly small in scale. It gives a multi-room layout opportunity for FPS combat, but we always knew we wanted it to be able to scale, you know, small, medium, large, to accommodate maybe 60 minutes of gameplay time per location.
Man, I'm really sorry to everybody who's like watched these things with me over the years. I feel like I'm watching this for like the 18th time, and I'm sure some of you are pretty up there with me. But it'll be worth it. So remember, Zone 1 of the underground facilities.
So how do we go about designing a location archetype from the ground up? So what we do is we split the location into the core areas we want to visually develop. Now for underground facilities, the first thing we're looking at here is what we're calling Zone 1. So this is the presence on the landscape. So what we're looking at here is an example key art shot of what a medium-sized underground facility could look like. So dominant features that we're seeing here is a kind of a key spire. this is instantly where your player, you should be able to navigate towards.
You will notice these look a lot like our
a corporate wing
distribution centers we have right now.
An executive landing pad on the top. And then moving down, it's very important to be able to get the landing pads or the landing hangars quite close to the facility, because we wanted that experience as the player lands. They're not far off from the location, they're actually quite close, and you should be able to see a little FPS area where the player lands. Also, what we're seeing here is some visual justification at what might actually be going on. So you're seeing, processing tanks and stuff.
Shapes and things. So we keep going past this first sector, right? And then we get inside, and once again, these are actually looking pretty familiar.
Now moving on to the inside, so after the players landed through the hangars, they'll be brought up into the main core.
Like this almost looks exactly like the lobby of the distribution centers.
Reception. Now these are going to be quite interesting because we'll be able to rebrand these depending on the manufacturer or the location. That's where we'll get a lot of the variety. But this is the corporate presence before the player would go down into the bowels of the facility. And what we're seeing here is, just an example of what a bearing reception could feel like.
All right. So this is where things start to get mixed up, because all of that has looked like distribution centers up until now. We get to zone 2 and things start changing.
Now moving into zone 2, with it being an underground facility, the physical act of going underground, that's cool, right? So we wanted zone 2 to be about the logistics of the player going up and down, and how we can make that cool visually, but also interesting from a player experience. So this is the transit, the elevator network. So we played around with a few different ideas into this, and one of the things that we thought could be quite interesting is the elevator itself could be a mini play space. So,
all right, skipping a little bit over this. This is something you can kind of recognize from distribution centers as well. And the difference between what we have and what the distribution centers are, or rather what this is in the distribution centers, is if you think back, in a distribution center, you'll go into this room that it's fairly dark. Let me see if I can find a video maybe that shows. I don't think I'm going to be able to find a video that shows this. Morph did a video on this that I might be able to, maybe he has footage of it. So it would be in this section,
a bit too cluttered. And
so if you look here, this is kind of similar to this. You can see the general design. So there's this central section, and then there is this section back here that's an elevator. And that's what they've kind of hidden in the distribution center. You can't tell that back here is a space for an elevator, and plenty of space around that elevator, like clearance, just like this. You can see you still got like this overarching control section here, like they had in this concept art. There's some hallways coming in from the sides over here. So this room is, I believe, was developed from this concept art. And what we're going to see is that this elevator is actually supposed to be a piece that drops down into the ground to the rest of the underground facilities, which, now that they're talking about them again, I do think might actually connect to some of the distribution centers.
Utilitarian art style. In the future, we'll expand out and do other art style variants. So what we're seeing here is the control room overlooking the main warehouse floor, and then this elevator should be big and clear enough for the player to understand, like that's where logistics will go up and down. And for the elevator itself, we wanted it to be its own play space. So on the top level, that's where containers will be shipped up and down. But maybe underneath it, there could be little nooks and crannies.
You can see this is
Navigation.
This is a little bit closer to what they ended up coming up with. It's like this large sort of glass wrapped lobby thing pointing out. Pretty exact match. Moving on
to be as intuitive
to the
as
third
possible.
zone. This is underground. This is the part that I believe we're about to get, but I don't think it's actually going to be connected. I think they're just going to be abandoned ones and kind of a first test case.
Moving on to zone 3, so this is the bowels of the facility. So these are going to be spaces that we've never really explored before. A lot of the locations in the game tend to be quite residential, but here we're going for something completely industrial. As a player, you want to feel like an ant almost to the location. The primary purpose is not for you to be walking around, so we dedicated spaces towards logistics, and we put kind of personnel walkways almost as a secondary element. So in this image, you're kind of seeing where, you know, big trucks could kind of go, but we've also got like little nooks and crannies for the player to kind of explore and go into. Now,
Nooks and crannies.
The corridor. So kind of similar to how you'd see on a character be a little control room looking at the flight deck. Here
Dude, this was so much freaking concept art, but this is actually a CitizenCon panel. This might be what CitizenCon is like this year. I mean, not in terms of the concept art and stuff, but just in terms of the presentation and delivery.
FPS combat, you know, for opportunities there. And
basically like an ISC.
Underneath, you're kind of seeing a tertiary route. Now, part of this could be this, maybe is stealth route, or maybe this is the upper area is blocked off, so the player has to go down below. So even within something as a concept of a corridor, we want to design many different avenues for the player to traverse. Okay.
Then they had these larger facilities that were deep underground.
Now, what we're seeing here is an example of an industrial space. Maybe it's processing. We didn't want to go too specific, just so that in the early development process, we wanted to explore motifs that could work. So here we're seeing an example, a processing room, but there's a few key things that's kind of cool. So right from the bottom level, there's a network of levels which will be dedicated towards processing, you know, pipes, machinery, all of that sort of good stuff. And then as we get higher up, we're seeing that very dominant kind of technical control wing suspended over the play space. As an idea, this creates a plethora of interesting opportunities as a play space to fight the way through or solve puzzles. One of the things early on we wanted is cause and effect. We wanted the player to be interacting, solving puzzles, but seeing that reflect into the space.
Like accidentally setting off explosions because you don't know what the heck you're doing.
Another theme room idea we came up with was processing. So bringing in raw materials, processing them through, ready for manufacturing. So we had a bit of fun with ways in which we could kind of create these quite interesting set pieces. So it's not all just industry.
In terms of processing, I think these would be best if you could just land, and I guess this is how the space stations work. You land at a distribution center, you put your goods into the freight elevator in the hangar, and then wherever you go within the underground facility or distribution center, you can access that freight so you can process the stuff you shipped or something.
In the underbelly of these underground facilities, there's also going to be technical areas, areas dedicated.
Dude, imagine working right here. That's awful. Look at how bright this is. This will f you up for half the day, man. Turn this off. This guy is so rude. Turn this off. Let these people work in peace. Oh my God.
Control of the location. So what we're seeing here is maybe it's the main map room. So this is where they control the networking of everything. And also on here, you've got...
Dude, this guy is dying. Misery down there.
The overseeing executive suite. So it's not just technicians here, but also executive wings. And also as a bit of fun, if the player does get access to these executive wings, then we're seeing another type of art style in here as well. So we've seen industrial, we've seen technical. Now we'll be seeing, you know, more like the corporate
Indo-technical.
So meeting rooms, office spaces, that sort of thing. And what we're seeing
Tech-industrial.
here is maybe there's the data processing of the location. So as a quick idea, we thought these data racks are actually submerged for cooling in a base of water. We thought also it'd be cool if there's a cause and effect. So if the player solves a puzzle, to go from it being below water to above water. So again, ways in which we can kind of spark ideas or conversations with design about interesting opportunities.
We certainly hope that sometime that happens. Now, this is what I think what we're going to get will look more like. This is the underground section that's a little more, quote unquote, abandoned style.
And then lastly, Zone 4. Now, it'd be a missed opportunity if we didn't go into some sort of organic locations as part of the underground facility. So this could be excavation zones or areas where it'd been abandoned. This could lead into cave networks. This was something we had quite a bit of fun with. So how do we actually take the player from being in this fairly well-established industrial location to a cave? There needs to be some form of transition period. So we came up with ideas about how we'd see excavation equipment, or, with the roads kind of peter out. And as part of the roads, maybe we can do.
Yeah, the mining ideas and stuff are great for down here.
As we're transitioning towards more natural spaces, we can not only introduce different types of geology, but maybe we're introducing some form of liquid. So depending on the location, maybe it's on a certain planet, there could be like underground rivers, underground lakes, maybe it's lava, maybe it's acidic. And also if we're describing these locations as maybe some are more abandoned, we could start to showcase how nature slowly started to take over. This also would introduce some pretty cool opportunities.
There's a lot of conceptual work and conceptual talk. Here is a little bit, though, of like the white box, I guess they were working on at the time. Who knows what happened to this? This could have been shelved and just waiting for underground facilities to become a priority again, or for distribution centers to expand. Don't really know if this stuff is still part of their repertoire of things they can use for this work, but if it is, we could see a nice expansion from UGFs. I'm not going to say they're definitely coming in the way we're about to see. I wish they were. I always thought they were until last year or so, maybe, when they didn't really talk about them. Now that they're coming up, I'm hopeful, but I don't want to get too excited yet.
Pushing forward for the new underground facilities. I'm quite excited about it, and hopefully you are soon. And we look forward to showing you more in the future.
All right, so that was what they had to show at that time, both concept art and some kind of work graphically in engine, I'm not sure. But that is not all they had to show about the new underground facilities. We actually had another update shortly after that. That's not where we're going to go, though. We are going to go to this update, I believe. Nope, not this update. This update talks about the scheduling. This is the update, I believe, that talks about... Yes, so here we actually get to see these in the engine. This was kind of crazy because at that time there wasn't really much show off something, get it in game quickly. But this was 4 months after that. 4 months after the concept art and the reveal of underground facilities. This guy was able to jump in and show us it in the engine. And this is part of why I think like there probably is this stuff existing somewhere in the game. I just don't know if they would use it. What you're going to notice here,
I'm just here for doing environment,
is that this is definitely what turned into distribution centers. So it's not like the idea of distribution centers and underground facilities being connected is that crazy. It's just that they haven't outright said it just yet, besides in this video. So we'll watch this and you guys will see what I mean.
You know, the function of the place. So as you can see, it's quite a formidable structure. Hangars on either side, landing pads, so you can move your cargo back and forth. But for us, we're going to just land, hopefully, on the top. Oh my God, I'm really butchering this flight.
We've all done this. Well, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us have gone and taken missions in distribution centers. It looks almost exactly like this. You can land down there. I mean, it's more detailed. There's more decoration. But you land down there, you come inside.
And the rep is, you know,
wait, I think he just said UGF.
Our lobby we'll get into. Here it is. So this, when you first turn up to the UGF.
Well, holy f***. He just called it an underground facility. I mean, I guess that's what they were still calling it by now. They weren't calling them distribution centers yet. Never mind. Sorry, false alarm.
You know, rock bottom. You're going to come here first. And this is kind of the introduction to whatever company owns the UGF. And you'll be getting some missions from in this place, but you can see it's quite going for that brutalist.
Don't actually get missions, really.
Having all this.
I do think that these locations are going to get a lot of help from the addition in 4.3. They're adding the ability for players to get missions from entering locations. That would probably help in the distribution center, huh? Was the distribution center turned into underground facilities? Other way around. We're watching underground facilities before they were turned into distribution centers.
Glass kind of makes it so you can kind of let the outside in a way. And you can see by looking out these windows, we can kind of take a look at
Akira-kun, good to see you.
The expanse of the structure.
Jay Bartender, welcome in.
And I think in the background over here, that is another UGF. So like I said.
All right. Continuing on, we know these areas. These are like the administrative kinds of areas. But
our main
this is that same spot that I pulled up in Morph's video, right? There's the same overhang, same central area on the left and right, same central areas. You got the catwalks on the side. That's where he's coming in at. This is just a finalized version of this. And honestly, they do need to unclutter this. This looks kind of ridiculous. But you can see again that they've got that elevator back there.
Elevator room, which you can see over there, which is lovely.
Yeah, same thing by a different name.
Way through. So this is the top elevator room. Again, there's kind of access to the outside. There's access to side rooms and other rooms from here. But essentially, this is where you're going to be in order to get downstairs. You have to come to a room like this. I'm just going to kind of walk you through it and go to our cargo office. But lots to do, lots of people milling about, lots of space to, to do things. So in we go. So this is our version of our cargo office. So you'd get delivery missions from here.
You can see this is already more expansive than the distribution centers that we have. We don't have shops and stuff in there just yet.
You could buy items, but a lot of our rooms are going to feature this kind of door with pedestrians on either side, and that's just so that we've got that kind of functionality throughout the space where, things will be moving around and really the pedestrians want to be out of the way type of thing.
The underground facilities we're getting in 4.3 are abandoned. They're abandoned because of other things. These that they're talking about here, and this is my own speculation, there's been nothing else confirmed except for what is in 4.3 with ASD. I believe that this is a sign that we might possibly see underground facilities expanded from distribution centers. Don't think it's confirmed. This is my hope and my dream, and call it a prediction maybe, but I think the fact that they are bringing underground facilities back into the limelight with 4.3 tells me that maybe ground locations might have more purpose than I thought. I thought they were canceled.
Let's just have a...
But I also think that these underground facilities are a really, really easy excuse to create instanced servers down underground that have no effect whatsoever on the world above them, except for economically. I mean, this is a really easy way to close off game spaces for people.
Look into the space itself. And everything's controlled by this kind of observation tower. For us, we're going to head downstairs.
So everything up until now has been pretty similar to a distribution center. This is the part where it
kind of smaller
drastically changes into an underground facility.
So away we go.
I remember in Morph's video, in these underground facilities, this was over here. We just walked from this area across this path over to this elevator here. Now we're going down.
Now the depth of the, the first sub-level is going to change in every UGF. No, that's going to be procedurally generated, a lot like the rooms as well. Oh, and the elevator's just kind of moving back up. Now you could take the cargo elevator down, that's fine, but that's going to be fully automated, whereas these pedestrian elevators are going to be more independent, and faster as well.
Rodolfo,
So
what's up, friend?
Disappearing up.
How you
to
doing?
the top. So this is our bottom of the elevator room. So again, nice big space, very functional. There's going to be, things.
I mean, at this point, you could just be in an instance, right? Exactly, admin. If they just have that elevator transition to you in an instance, not even like a different version of the game. Like it could be basically like the hangars. As you go down that elevator, it just kind of transitions you to another part of under the planet's surface. And then whenever you go back up, it just moves you back into the space.
It's loaded on and off. And then this gives us kind of access to the rooms, or the wings on either side, I should say. So as we release more content for this, you're going to get more expansive wings, different themes, that kind of thing. Now the doors here are a bit misaligned. Again, work in progress. And this is a security checkpoint. So hopefully you've got the right credentials. You're going to get checked, you're going to get scanned. But what if you haven't got those credentials? Well, there are alternate routes in. Down here that you can see there's a little hatch. So maybe
Those do exist in distribution centers.
maybe you're sneaking your way under the floor, or are you making your way over the top on piping multiple ways in? So again, we're in a bigger room now. In the white box, it's really good to just call out, yes, your alternate routes, yes, your main path, but also where can you get on and off of those? What's rock, what's metal, what's a feature, what isn't? Because if we can call that out now, it means that we're giving people more information as they go into the next phase. Again, so this is just an example of a kind of maybe a rock room, which kind of just links two rooms together. Maybe there's some storage. Now, can I just jump over this because I forgot to put stairs in? Over to the other side. And these are kind of our biggest doorways, but I'm not going to go down this, but we're going to have smaller doors into the space. So in here, it's kind of like, well, where do these lead? We're going to have to wait.
We
for
will
that, I'm
literally
afraid.
never know.
So that one up there, that's where you'd kind of navigate to each room.
It gives me a Tsavo Highway on Halo 3. What this reminds me of.
Through the ceiling. So we're back in that big room from before.
Also some Half-Life.
Now, when the rooms are this big, we can do a bit more with them. So there's an area out back here. There's, rooms and maybe even some control points. So what if this bridge, I know it's a little blurred over this chasm, what if you could retract that back and forth? What if it's not even there? How are you gonna make your way across.
Right as your friend's about to drive
Not
their
for me to decide, for you as the
vehicle
player
across.
when you're getting in and out to decide. But for the moment, we're just going to make our way through. Yeah, if you fall down there, you're probably going to die, so watch out for those kind of things. But there are still, hopefully you can find your way on these main routes. Some side rooms you could play, but then also, this bit's under construction now, but I wonder what it's going to be in the future. And
more
having all these
construction.
spaces kind of to this level of detail, it's really rough, as you can see, but I'm walking around unhindered. I can step up and down this thing. I can see where kind of a building might be, or where we could have mission spawners, or maybe that's where you need to get to. You've got this main route, but we've also considered the alternate route. So if you're sneaking in, where can you go? And this
Jump
is kind
it.
of predominantly...
Jump it.
Well, actually, having said that, there's pipes up there, so you could go from the ceiling, or you could go underneath. And then, how do you sneak around? What if people are down there and they spot you? You've got to contend with that. And then this is more of a hero room at the moment. This is like a warehouse. So this is same level of detail as the rest that we've just walked through, but the lighting's had a bit of a better pass on it.
Where they
We're
store the
midway through
drugs.
this white box process at the moment. Things can change still. Maybe the alternate route is where that guy in red is down there, but if you fall down that one, you might end up breaking your legs. All of these containers, maybe the straddle frames are moving things around. Potentially, if you're on a mission where you want to steal something, maybe it's in one of those containers. Hopefully a big, working space, sandbox within a sandbox, you could say. What I do like about this room is that you've got these straddle frames, why not get onto the top of them?
Believe it or not, this was one of the first times in all of Star Citizen's development history that we were actually seeing labeled 16 and 32 SCU boxes. I remember watching this video and seeing these boxes and being like, oh, they're building bigger cargo boxes. We're going to get 16 and 32. Oh my gosh. Like, he was walking around all this and I was just like, wow, cargo boxes. Cool, dude.
About this room is that you've got these straddle frames, why not get onto the top of them and get to the cabin? But also when you're in the depths of the room, it's kind of like you've got these big piles of crates.
This actually reminds me of a map from, I think, Battlefield 5, maybe? I think Battlefield 5, there's like a map where you're in a bunch of cargo crates around this area. You're fighting, it looks a lot like
Maybe
this.
you're sneaking between them. Maybe you're rifling through the contents of one and then trying to get out.
Was that 3?
So there we go, that's where we're currently at. Like I said, we're midway through White Box. We've got a bit of time left to polish these rooms up and get the rest done. We're more or less at about 17 rooms, and then each of those rooms will have...
Dude, no way. That was 3 or 4? You've got to be, there's no, whoa, hold on. Wait, what's going on? My brain is breaking. No way. Battlefield 4? Are you freaking serious? I need a moment, man. I feel like Steve Carell. No! God, no! Jesus! So underground facilities basically disappeared after that. We literally just didn't hear about them anymore. But in the year 2023, they just kind of introduced this. And this is, I want to show you how this is introduced. Just like imagine to yourself that you had just gone through all of the things that we just went through, the videos and all that stuff, and you're thinking about that, you're excited about underground facilities, you're looking forward to it. And then this is the next introduction you get of any sort of large ground-based location.
Before we delve into it, everything that you're going to see is currently in grey box, so just keep that in mind. So, these distribution centres, what are they? Well, first off, they're the biggest location we have on the ground, outside of landing zones. The reason why they're so big is intentional. We wanted them to accommodate as much world and mission-based gameplay as possible. Each location supports multiple landing pads and hangars, making them accessible to as many players as possible at any one time. There's even a road network to support transit from the planet's surface, into the main building and to any berth ships.
Roads!
So every distribution center will be owned by a faction. Depending on the faction and where the distribution center is located on the planet will determine its specialism. Now, each specialism will lend itself to different missions and gameplay opportunities. So let's talk about some factions for a moment. So an example of a major faction would be the UEE.
Boo.
Now, at their distribution centers, they're likely to be more
What the heck?
Now, an example of a major faction would be the UEE. Now, at their distribution
Oh, I
centers,
think people booed in the crowd too.
they're likely to be more specialized towards military supply, research and development, or communications, depending on which branch of the UEE it is. And means of hostile gameplay that we're thinking of is hacking and stealing, searching for and destroying a specific item, tracking and eliminating any VIPs, and everyone's favorite, eliminate all.
Now we got these. I don't even think a lot of them work anymore, which is just, these missions were made like a year ago. Why do they not work now, man? Distribution centers have been pretty disappointing, not gonna lie. I do think that there's a lot more in store for them. They were added at their whole 3.x level, we just want to get this in for the alpha kind of edition thing, but I do think there are more plans for these facilities. They just left in squalor for their first year. Yippee.
Grey Cat Industrial would be an example of a minor faction. So their distribution centers will be more specialized towards gathering resources, manufacturing, assembly, shipping. There would be a security.
These are the things that would come from the faction, the mission givers, and the actual presence. I do believe that we're seeing them inch their way towards this. They're adding Foxwell. They're adding ASD. They're adding Hathor. They're adding different companies based around the content they're doing. I think that's just their vehicle for getting stuff to work. At some point, Grey Cat is going to have like a faction rep or something, whether it's Grey Cat or Shubin or Ling or any of the families or any of the companies that do industrial stuff. At some point, they have to get mission givers and like faction missions, and those have to come from somewhere. Maybe there'll be cities and space stations, but I think distribution centers are pretty primed for it.
Presence here, but it won't be that as strong as a major faction. Our missions here would be more suited to friendly gameplay loops, though we won't be ruling out hostile missions like corporate espionage.
All right. Now we're going to look at, so just a brief look at this stuff here.
And I'm here to present the administrative area of these facilities that the Montreal team has been working on.
So the administrative area is that center spot. And yes, it looks quite similar to the underground facility diagram we saw earlier. So do the internal parts of the base. Like, this is the same stuff we were looking at in those underground facility videos. They were just calling them underground facilities. They just changed the name of these because this first version of it wasn't underground. It was just that. Let me go back. Back. It was just Zone 1. Remember? Zone 1 is distribution centers T0. So they were talking about the things they want to do with this, but it didn't come together in the time that they wanted, I think. But here they talk a little bit about the big pieces of content they wanted to have in here, which is the raids.
Risk, high reward operations. As Carl mentioned previously, you'll be able to choose how you gain entry to these locations. Coming prepared and geared up will make the difference between success and failure. Ultimately, you'll need to work together in order to succeed. So these raids will have you breaching the interior of the main structure, highlighted here. Now, each interior will comprise of rooms that reflect the location's specialism. For example, a shipping-focused distribution center will have rooms dedicated to the storage of cargo. Looking to the future, we're planning on having distribution centers with subterranean levels that will be accessed from this interior space. These will expand upon and increase the difficulty of these raids. Now let's take a look at one of these raid missions in action, but please note that this is early gameplay prototype of a raid.
Black. That's how I shoot. I don't think this is what we're going to get at the underground facilities in 4.3, but I do think this is the kind of stuff they're thinking about for ArcCorp. This feels like the combat version of the different types of raids and gameplay they're going to do. With 4.3, we're looking at something more puzzle focused, which there are some puzzles that they were going to do in these areas with these boxes. They just never did. Look at this dude. This is literally Cyril Figgis if he was playing Star Citizen. Suppressing fire! Man, you better hope there were some valuables in those 4 boxes you got. It's a fun idea for a raid, to be honest. I think this would be fun, as long as there's good stuff to get.
Thank you. So, as you saw in the video, the team took a more aggressive approach to getting inside and taking what they wanted. But this isn't the only approach you can use. Multiple points of egress allow you to be stealthier, and it may make it easier for you to avoid obstacles in your path. Now, reputation will also tie into these raids. Missions will have varying objectives depending on the player's reputation level, and dynamic events may also be triggered during the raid, so players will need to adapt to an evolving situation. This could range from dealing with additional security personnel to other players arriving to defend the location against you. Something else we've been prototyping is how we can utilize the multi-tool to create gameplay puzzles. Physically interacting with the environment around you changes the puzzles for everybody. With multiple add-ons for the tool available, you may have to get creative when finding a solution to the problem in front of you. In this next video, we show you how...
See, this was like, I was really excited for how they were going to utilize this to give us something easy, puzzle-based to do with gravity. I really hope they still are going to do this.
Using the track to be an attachment can open up new paths to your objective, but it's up to you to decide what path you can create with what is available. That's what
Considering this is related to distribution centers once known as underground facilities, and we are getting supposed underground facilities focused on puzzles in the next update, maybe we'll see something similar to this. It's riveting stuff without the sound design. It's actually extremely anticlimactic without the sound design. But I mean, I like the ideas there. It's not lose your head over.
So, yes,
Puzzles are
thank
good.
you. Now, obviously, it was, this location would be possible with several people at CIG, so my thanks go to Manuel, John, Jack, Martin, Farouk, Luke, Chris, Mustafa, Sam, Tom, and Rob. You've been excellent. Thank you to Rainer and his team in Montreal. None of this would be possible without their efforts. And yeah, thanks to everybody here and online watching. Really appreciate your support. On to the next one.
All right. So that's what we really got from distribution centers after they were introduced. And I think there was an ISC about them, but we don't really need to go into too much detail. There was a Q&A on it. I wonder if they answered anything about the underground portions. Let's see. Plan to have it connected to road networks. Will the new UGFs replace or be in addition to existing bunkers? Okay, let's listen to what this is about underground facilities back in 2024. It's last year. Pretty up to date.
There's no difference between you and us. I mean that. Will the new UGFs replace or be in addition to existing bunkers? Well, we already know that. That's in addition. The existing.
Yeah. They will remain, and DCs will just be there.
See, they're even like somebody said UGF, but they knew they meant DCs. That it's so similar.
Well.
It's one of the reasons we replaced the name. Like we were calling these new underground facilities for a while, and it's like, well, it just got confusing. People thought they would replace it. No, we named them because these are in addition.
But now they're adding new underground facility. I don't know what to think of that then. Is this supposed to then be a confusing part? Or did these replace them? So back then, they were still calling them underground facilities. Like he specifically didn't say they were renamed to distribution centers because they were removing the underground part. Just that they were confusing. That's the only part that he mentioned. I don't know if there's any other bits here. Are abandoned or derelict distribution centers planned? Let's listen to that.
Are abandoned or derelict distribution centers planned?
Not at the moment, but I think going on the fact that there are rundown or abandoned versions of other locations, there's no reason why we couldn't have versions of the DCs which were in the same category. Yeah. And then you could then have DCs in like pirate systems like Pyro, for example, where they are kind of up for, maybe it's a bit of a capture the flag type episode on it, but with players, that would be quite cool to have. Who owns this distribution center? Does it change hands a lot? Are you then competing with kind of more established factions in the game? That would be pretty
that'd
great.
Be sick.
But right now we haven't got plans to do that, but I don't see why we shouldn't do that in the future. I
mean, you're right. We do make abandoned or derelict versions of everything else. It's just, I don't know, things, these brand new things look cool, and then you rough them up and you mess them up, and they just seem just that much more real. So I would be very surprised if the call isn't made at some point.
Yeah, I think, in...
And here we are, just a little over a year later, and the call has been made.
The first release of anything, he says, thinking about Pyro right now. You need an occupied version. And then when you have that, it's kind of like you've done all the setup already. You're just making new overlays, which then dress it in a certain way. So
it's interesting that they're going with them added in Stanton first, but I guess they want to bring more gameplay to Stanton before they really double down on Pyro some more.
The hardest part is the initial release, what we want, but then after that, it's still work to get these things done, but it's not, I suppose, as much work. Hopefully,
I don't know. It's I've seen that when they were making the derelict ships, it's a lot of work to break them up in a way that's not just crap to be complete.
Yeah, I suppose with ships though, it's different because the ship is formed and they have to unform it. Whereas with us, our base rooms already exist. It's just new dressing on top of them.
To wrap this all up, we get to 4.3 and their cooperative zones, which are not events, not sandbox, like contested zones, but focused on investigation, puzzle solving, and cooperation. We saw the examples of some puzzles that might take place in some of these underground facilities and also how they might look. The underground facilities are located on every moon in Stanton, multi-leveled, enormous, and used for cooperative zones. And I do believe on the roadmap there is at least one picture of these. Not a picture of the location, just kind of like a branding shot. These are the underground facilities. So we'll see how they turn out. But to be honest, I think there's a good bet underground facilities are going to make a decent comeback and actually be used quite a bit. And I'm crossing my fingers they do get implemented in distribution centers, and we get some massively larger in-game locations to do this kind of gameplay. Because stuff like this is going to be so much better for working your way through steps and sections of locations, like way better than Hathor, where you're running around outside, or even Stormbreaker, where you're doing things on like closed circuits or flying through space to get to somewhere. These are going to be like actual industrial locations where we can get into different types of gameplay. I like that. Obviously, they'll be more beat up than what we're saying here, but some good news. That's everything I had for today.